They were run by Chris Wray, and they were run by Comey, and because it was actually even before that administration,
right?
They've been running these files. And so much of the things that we found were fake with me. And so much of the things that we found were fake with me. And so much of the things that we found were fake with me.
So, what's up, guys? Welcome to a night edition of the Good Faith Show. I'm Andre, and I have a special guest, Heena Lotus. Say what's up to the people.
Hey everyone, it's nice to meet you guys. I'm super humbled and excited to be on, and I know we have like tons of things to cover.
Yeah, we do, especially the clip we just shown. Yeah, like that was a total slip up, but yeah. But before we get to all that, I have some shameless plugs. If you're watching this, like the video. It's free. It don't cost you nothing. So, if you come in for a few seconds on YouTube or Rumble, and you want to see our pretty faces, for a few seconds, like the video, and, you can leave. Greatly appreciate it. And also on the bottom of the ticker, follow the ATP Network official Twitter account. Our handle is at ATP Network 247. And we also have a merch store. The link for that is ATP Network at myshopify.com. And also go to GazaFunds.com, support the Palestinians any way you can. There's just atrocity what's happening there. So go to GazaFunds.com. So all right. So you seen the slip up with Trump. Let's start with that first.
I think well, let's get started with the fact that there's like this like civil war on Twitter between MAGA, right? Where you have like people that are just like Epstein, it was a thing, and then half of them are like, no, it wasn't a thing. Like that's the most random part about all this, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. MAGA, like the MAGA sycophants, the podcasters, like they're like in such a bind to where like, damn, like we were so hell bent on like for Trump to release the files, but now since he don't want to, like, damn, how we gonna spin this? Let's say it's a Democratic hoax or some shit like that, and you got the MAGA fan base that like they're killing Trump on True Social. Saying like, we support you, Mr. President, but we need to expose all the pedophiles and stuff like that. So it's wild.
Yeah, no, but no one is surprised because I mean we saw this even with let's flip it over to like the Democratic Socialists, since we're gonna get into that like shortly. Remember when I know most people on this side of the political spectrum, everyone at one point was sort of or an entirely a Bernie bro, right? And then we just sort of were like, hey, it's all a sham, and we moved more and more left. I think that's what happened with Bernie too. There's a lot of people who are just like, no, he's just playing both sides. He just needs to, suck up to the Democrats and everything will be okay. And then some people were like, wait, he's a sellout. MAGA, I think, is honestly going through the exact same thing right now, where some people are discovering, wait, Trump is not who he said he was. A lot of things he promised isn't happening. And then there's these people who love Trump more than Jesus. Like, that's honestly what it's coming down to.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a great point, Heena. I ain't thought about it like that. I think MAGA's in the same place that us Brony Bros was at, for 4 years ago. Like, yeah, like holy crap, like damn, like he's supposed to release the Epstein files, and he's saying they don't exist. So like yeah, so he's a
Tomorrow they're
fraud.
going to be like
Like
the Russians did it. It wasn't even the Democrats. It's a Russian, plug or something like that. It's a Russian proxy. That's how they do it. They're like, it doesn't exist. The Democrats did it. It's the Russians who did it. And then, the Illuminati was behind it. It just, yeah. You know how it goes.
yeah, like yeah, it just I mean like a lot of people saying like there's no Epstein list, but people are saying like it's flight logs and stuff like that. But yeah, but my thing also too about it is that like we knew Trump and like we know that Trump and Epstein hung out and they went to his island, and you know what happened there. But like yeah, but even the MAGA sycophants can't even spin a narrative like it's you know what I mean? Like his
Well, that's
his
the thing.
his base is
Trump,
too infatuated.
we have Trump on video, on record, repeatedly talking about the Epstein files, right? And how all these individuals were guilty of it. And now for him to be like, actually, it doesn't exist. It's not a thing. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say people aren't dumb. There are a lot of people who consume MSM and are dumb. But I think at the end of the day, people who are free thinkers, think for themselves, follow news like a hawk, they're going to know it's a sham. They're going to know that they're doing like a complete 180 and trying to basically brush it under the rug, which further incriminates him. I think that's the thing he doesn't understand, because he brings it up repeatedly, right? Like there's all these news stories and headlines that come out, and randomly he'll be like, by the way, the Epstein files. And it's like, thank you for reminding us. We still need to go after your ass.
Exactly. And what I mean, do you remember Pam Bundy said the Epstein files on her desk? Now all of a
Yeah.
sudden they don't exist. Like where they went?
Yeah.
So the binders they had them in was fake. Like I don't. Yeah,
Well, this
it's
is my
wild.
theory. 79% of Americans want the Epstein files, released, like the list. And in my opinion, the 21% who don't are on the list. That's what I think is honestly going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. The Democrats, they supporting it because they know that it's not going to, when the Congress supposed to vote to release them, the Republicans aren't going to release them because, like I said on Twitter a few times, like some other Congress people are on there too. So, I mean, why
I
release the
think
dirty laundry?
I think the list is probably way more intricate and long and has a bunch of names we haven't even thought of, right? Because we think of like, all the people internationally, the celebrities, the politicians. We have like a prince on there, we have congressmen, we have people like in Hollywood. But I think I think the list is really, really, really extensive. And I think the problem with not just Trump, right? Let's not turn it into like a Democrat versus Republican thing. The entire system, right, is like corrupt. So the
Right.
entire system, what they do is they run on the platform that, hey, the opposing party didn't deliver. We are going to, do good on that. Once they're in power, they're like, actually, we're not going to do good on that because it's the other party's fault. And it's just like the swinging pendulum going back and forth. And we're seeing that right now with Trump, right? His entire platform was, the Dems are never going to do this, and that. I'm going to do it. He made all these promises. And then he's like, actually, these things never existed, and it's all the Dems' fault. Exactly what we saw them do. So it's this pendulum. And I'm glad that they're doing it and it's swinging back and forth, because I think it allows certain people, right, that are kind of thinking independently of MSM and watching your show and all the other amazing shows that are independent of the system. It's helping kind of people realize, wait, it doesn't matter if you vote Democrat or Republican. It doesn't matter what politician you get behind. We're all collectively screwed, and we need to think independently of that. So I'm glad that he's being super shady, because I'm hoping it's like waking some people up, and they like turn off MSNBC, they turn off CNN, and they start watching you and me if I'm on again. You can put it in
Yeah.
the comments below if you want me back on, but I want them watching your show and shows like this that are not funded by like, corporations and the government, right? There's no reason for us to lie. We're just like, look, this is what's going on.
Yeah, like, and also too, like if you in independent media, like they know we're telling the truth. This is why they are trying to do anything in their power to suppress us, to censor us, because they don't want the truth to come out. They want people to be, I said this on my video, my live stream earlier, like they want Americans to be dumb. Like this is probably why that most Americans have a sixth grade reading level, because if people start to think for themselves, then they'll be like, "Holy shit, this system is rigged against us like a mug." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so basically, I could say about the Epstein and Trump situation is that, like, MAGA's finally waking up a little bit. Some of them, it's still some of them that's still delusional. Like, it's still like that 30% of his base that will ride with Trump no matter what. Like, you remember when they had those things over their ear, like some of his base, like those people. But yeah, so it's wild.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to watch though, because we all collectively thought MAGA was like unbreakable, and who's breaking it? No one out to break it. I think like Trump is breaking MAGA himself, right? Because I think I don't know if you saw it, but when he tweeted that really long rant about the Epstein files and how it's a hoax and everything, he was just
Yeah,
like, "I don't even need you guys if you don't believe me," and I'm just like, those are really strong fighting words, and that's gonna bite him in the butt.
yeah. Hey, that might cost him. It might cost him and the Republicans in the midterms. Like he's
Yeah,
basically,
no, definitely. Not that the Democrats are going to do anything, right? Like it doesn't
oh
matter
no,
who's in power, but it
yeah,
just it kind of shows it shows Americans who are kind of more conscious and thinking about it and waking up like, look, damned if you do, damned if you don't. What is the third party option? Where's the revolution? That's kind of like the direction we want people to go in.
yeah, like yeah, like yeah, like we basically should be in the mood like, where the guillotine? Bring out the guillotines. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So so yeah, so ALC, oh boy, ALC really messed up now, right? Apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene had an amendment to stop the funding for Israel, and ALC voted for it. I mean, like like even some of her like deep supporters are like just disappointed in her, calling her out. Like, it's the same thing with Trump. Like dang, like they finally waking up, seeing how what a fraud she is. Like us on the left, we've been saying this since when 2020, when she voted for the damn, I forgot that bill name, but the biggest transfer of
It was the
wealth.
one in healthcare, right? The healthcare bill, was it Medicare for all, if I'm not mistaken, or no?
Oh, no, before first of all, I think the CARE Act. She voted for the
Oh,
CARE
yes.
Act, which
Okay, yeah,
was,
yeah.
yeah, she voted for that, which it was the biggest transfer of wealth to the billionaires. Like, that's when a lot of us really cut her off, then forced to vote. About that debacle, and then yeah. So I mean, like, give me your thoughts on the ALC situation. I mean, it's wild.
I mean, no one is surprised. I mean, I don't say no one. I would say people that are critical thinkers aren't surprised, because we all knew she was a sellout. We all knew that she was a liberal Zionist. We all knew that she was basically trying to get the leftist, you know what I mean, the progressive, the communist, the socialist vote, but she essentially is a Democrat through and through, right?
Right.
I think that I don't know. I think what she did was very, very telling. I wasn't surprised, but to see everyone kind of get super upset about it made me realize, wow, there was a lot of people who still had faith in her. At the end of the day, I think that I'm glad she did it in a weird way. I mean, I'm not glad she did it because obviously we need to stop funding to Israel, but I'm glad she did it because it's kind of showing this very interesting dichotomy right now. Think about it. Candace Owens, um Tucker Carlson of all people, and then Marjorie, Taylor. Like, I think all three of them, I'm not going to say I agree with them. They're very problematic people. They've said and done a lot of things that are harmful. I don't, align with them politically or ideologically. But a lot of what they're saying at this very moment on current events has a lot more truth to it and is more applicable to like everyday human beings like you and I. And then you have AOC and Bernie and all these like quote unquote radical leftists and Dems that are just like part of the system, part of the empire, selling out Palestinians, like, not advocating for Black liberation, not advocating for the working class. So it's kind of showing you at the end of the day that all of these individuals are part of that same system that is like, built to oppress us. And it's just wild to me that I'll listen to Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson and be like, I never once thought that I would listen to them and be like, yes, I agree. It makes me feel like a
Me too.
horrible human being, but you got to give credit where it's due, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, like I made a podcast giving a podcast last year. Tucker Carlson said something that was true about something. I forgot what it was. I think it was something about Russia or Ukraine or something like that. And when I was making it, I felt queasy because I couldn't stand Tucker Carlson for the longest time. Like like he's the same one that called immigrants, dirty and stuff like that, and the Great Replacement theory and all that stuff. But like, you know, me, like, I call it balls and strikes. Like, if somebody that I heavily disagree with says something that's true, I give them credit. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's how we should be as if that's how we should be in general. But a lot of people, once somebody says something they heavily disagree with, if they say something that's true, then they just brush it off like it's nothing. You know what I mean? I hope I'm saying it right. But
no, you are. And actually, that I wanted to
okay.
make a point to your audience because what you said is so important and it's something I'm realizing. I obviously have my political beliefs, and the more that I learn and grow, the more they're materialized and like strengthened. But sometimes I'll meet people who are like, they have the same labels that I do, like, oh, I believe in, being a progressive, or I believe in the working class and class consciousness. And, they throw around the buzzwords. But then when you talk to them, it's kind of like, no offense, but some of the stupidest stuff I've ever heard that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, you're still kind of siding with the oppression. And then there's people that I meet that are like, oh, I'm a conservative, I'm a fascist, I'm whatever, right? But then they themselves are sitting there and talking about topics that I actually like agree with. And I'm not saying I'm a fascist or I'm a conservative, but what I'm saying is we have to listen to the voice of reason regardless of the label that they give themselves. Because sometimes people label themselves not understanding what the label means, but their thought process is along the lines that will liberate people. And so always kind of keep an open mind and have intellectual discourse. And I think even when you talk to people who are on the opposite end of the spectrum, don't just be like, oh, I should only talk to people who have the same views as me. Sometimes when you get into these healthy debates, it changes people's minds, right? I mean, I'm like ashamed to admit this, but there was one time like when I was in college that I thought Obama was going to bring change. And I very quickly realized that he was
Me too.
probably one of the worst presidents of all time for like a multitude of different, demographics. But I wouldn't have understood that had I not talked to the opposition, who was like, no, Heena, wait, we need to question things. Look at what he did in terms of his foreign policy. Look at what he did in terms of his domestic policy. Look at how much he harmed like Muslim countries. Look at how much he, harmed the African American community. I had to be open to that. There's other individuals who are confused. They're watching MSNBC, they're watching CNN, they're watching
Yeah.
Fox, they're listening to Trump talk, and they're like, this isn't adding up. So they need to have conversations with this end of the spectrum to kind of realize for themselves, look, we're all the working class. And this whole Democrat Republican thing is a form of conquer and divide. And as long as we fight each other, the government's going to just do whatever the F it wants. And we're just all going to, due to inflation, end up homeless. And it sounds like a joke, but I really think that's where we're headed if people don't wake up.
Exactly, 100%. Like, I had to learn something too. Like, when I first really started getting into politics, I thought I thought things was in like in a one dimensional type of thing, but I started to realize like a lot of stuff I like when I'm online, like it's people that listen to me, but when I actually talk to people on the ground, like at my job, for example, like a lot of my coworkers, they like when I tell them stuff, they be like, "Dang, I didn't know that about Obama. I thought Obama was a good person," or, "I didn't know that our government lied to us about wars and stuff like that." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, they don't want you to know that stuff." You know what I mean? Like, you watching what Fox News on the TV in the break room when you should be watching like RBN or watching Heena or watching me, ATP network. Like, I try to get people to like stop watching that stuff. And ever since then, at my old job, people don't watch that no more. Like, people were tuning in to Fox News, they were talking about it at work. Then I told people like that stuff is propaganda. Like, it's meant to divide us. You know that, right? We got a lot in common. You know, I work with Republicans, I work with Democrats, I work with independents, but I see all of them as one person. Like, they're all good people. A lot of people, they just go to work because, they've been told to go to work. If you work hard, you know the same stigma, right? you work hard, you do the right thing, you'll be successful. But a lot of these people, I talk to them, and they are struggling. So I mean, hard work to me don't mean shit. You know what I mean? Like hard, like that's just like. What's your thoughts on that? Like how people think of capitalism, like they think if you work hard, you'll succeed. But the truth is, they don't want you to be rich. They don't want you to be successful. They want you to be a wage slave. What's your thoughts?
I mean, let's take it back, like historically speaking, you have Reagan over here changing a lot of like economic policies. When was this, like in the 80s or what have you? And I feel like at that point, obviously capitalism was never the answer, but economic equity or equality was still somewhat, attainable. If you worked hard, you would have still been in the middle class. I'm not saying you would have been a billionaire, but the
Yeah.
American dream was more accessible. Reagan came in, and then you have like, the trickle down theory and all these weird, like, hey, if we tax the poorest people and abstain from taxing the very top, they're going to invest it back into, you know what I mean, like their employees and back into the economy. And we've seen examples of this time and time again, where essentially what's happening is, the richest people are not getting taxed, the poor people are. So you have a form of socialism for the rich, you have capitalism for the poor, and it's making the poor even more poor. The middle class is like basically, coming to an end, if there's a way to put it. And then
Yeah.
you have billionaires, despite all the inflation, like people can't afford eggs, people can't afford rent, people can't afford, going to the movies, clothes, people can't afford to have kids, like our species is coming to an end. And you have
Yes. Yes.
billionaires right in the news. It's like, hey, this billionaire made an extra 5-6 billion during these times. And I think people need to understand that no matter how educated you are, no matter how like, financially literate you are, no matter like, how hard you're working, how many hours you're putting in, how many investments you're making, at the rate that inflation is going, it's going to be unlivable for everyone. And you can't just look at it in terms of like just purely economics, even from an environmental standpoint, right? Like, I always think it's really funny. I tell my sister this all the time. It's funny that you'll see these commercial that's like, make sure you turn off the lights. We got to, save the world. And I'm like, I can leave on my lights every single day, have this crazy electric bill, and it would not even make a dent, right? If we all collectively just had our lights on 24/7, it wouldn't even make a dent in how much it's hurting the environment in comparison to what all these corporations are doing. And that isn't even like comparable to like the military industrial complex that has all these bombs going off all over the world, not only in like committing genocide, but also think about it in terms of like the environmental factors. That's the thing. We've been told a lie. We've been told, recycle, turn off your lights,
Mm-hmm.
be a good Samaritan, pay your taxes, do the right thing. We're told to do the right thing because it keeps us in bondage. And the only person or the only people that it's benefiting is the corporations. And think about it in terms of media too. When we tell people don't watch Fox and CNN and all that, look at who's funding these channels, right? Like, for the longest time, there's a lot of people I knew that were like really into like Al Jazeera, and they're like, oh, Al Jazeera is so different. No, it's not. Like, it's, it's funded by Qatar, right? And it's like, that's like
Yeah. Yeah.
essentially like a US ally. So it's never going to tell you the absolute truth. It seems like it is because it's like, oh, it's a Muslim channel and they're not allowed, inside Israel and this and that. But I really truly think that to understand like, especially during the information age, all the information we're consuming, we're not able to understand the biases or why they're not telling us the truth until we find out who funds them. Always look at who's funding scientific studies, who's backing certain products, who's like, saying certain things on the news. If you follow the money, right? If you follow the money, you figure out very quickly that this entire system is designed to lie to you, to keep you oppressed. Sorry, that was like a really long rant.
Oh, you good? Good. I did a long rant too earlier. Yeah, that's so true. My sister Sabby Sabs always say follow the money, and now I understand why she says that because like with Fox News, who funds them? The military industrial complex. CNN, same thing. Yeah, like they are tools of those people to spread lies. They are tools to spread that, hey, we have to go to war with Iran because we gotta do regime change, and it's all about, one thing I always hate about what they always say about the reason why we get into these wars, because it's for the women and children. But those the same people that that advocate sending bombs to Israel to murder Palestinians. Like it just don't make any sense. If you actually care about the women and children, then you will stop. Then you wouldn't commit genocide. But yeah, and also too, like yeah, like I was a recycle head too myself at one time. I saved
But I'm
bottles,
not telling people don't
cans.
recycle. That's not the message, right? Like, please keep
Yeah,
recycling and turn off your lights. But it's not. We're
yeah,
told that we bear the burden of saving the environment, but what we should be doing first and foremost is holding corporations accountable. We should do our due diligence, but our due diligence as individuals and the
yeah.
collective is not going to somehow prevent what these mass corporations are doing to destroy the planet. It's wild.
Yeah. That's what I was getting to too. Like, yeah, I've been told to recycle and stuff like that, but like, yeah, but especially with the what's going on with the genocide, like, it's definitely having an environmental impact on our world. Dropping those 1,000 pound, 2,000 pound bombs and stuff like that. So yeah, you're right. You're right. So yeah. Speaking of the genocide, like, I mean, like now it's at a point in time where like they literally trying to really ultraly starve the Palestinian people now. I mean, I always ask my guests this when they come on, like, do you do you see in the future like a road to liberation for the Palestinian people?
Gosh, that's such a tough question. I do. I honestly do. I'm an idealist. I mean, I think to be a progressive or, whatever the case may be, you have to be an idealist. But I
Yeah.
personally think the problem is like we are not like anyone outside of Palestine is not the resistance. We are supporting resistance. We are supporting liberation. We can advocate for it. You know what I mean? We
Hmm.
can be loyal to them, but the liberation, you know what I mean, is only going to come from the Palestinians themselves. So I think it's important to, protest, to, practice like, BDS and boycott like certain things. It has impacted the economy heavily against the Israelis. I think it's important to educate yourself. It's important to post about it on social media. It's important to send money over there, with like verified accounts and stuff like that. But a lot of people like think like when we do all these things, we ourselves are going to be the ones liberating Palestine. Is it possible? Maybe, but if you look at it from like a historic, like from a historic viewpoint, you realize that the liberation of, let's say, black people colonized countries, under the British Empire, things that you saw in, South America, things that you saw in Asia and the Middle East, and the list goes on and on. The struggle and liberation always was an internal matter, which is another reason why I don't think military occupation works, right? Are there actual human rights violations going on all over the world? Are there like dictators all over the world? Yeah, absolutely. But if people want to liberate themselves, we can advocate for it and we can support it and we can like support the resistance, but we cannot be the resistance, right? And I think people need to understand that. So like I 100% believe that like, the shambles that a lot of these countries are left in after colonization, and you see that especially with Africa. I've always,
Yeah.
given my solidarity, but at the end of the day, it's Africans themselves that are like, no, we want to nationalize our resources. We no longer want to do trade with France. We no longer want Europeans to sit there and take advantage of us, even though, we're resource rich, but are struggling, right? You're seeing these movements internally. And I think, in my opinion, that's applicable to Palestinians as well. I wish we could all collectively just, I don't even know, like just get rid of Israel as a whole and be like, all right, Palestinians, just
Yes.
come back. I would love that. That would
Me
make
too.
my heart so happy. But if you look at it from like an economic standpoint, a political standpoint, a social standpoint, it's going to have to be internal. And I think that's why it's more so, it's more important than ever for us to give their solidarity and to not give up, because there's a lot of people that are like, I'm so exhausted and this is so much mental fatigue. You have mental fatigue? Like, these people have lost
Yeah.
their limbs, their homes, their lives, their families, bloodlines, losing like historic, like, like churches and mosques, and we are
Hmm.
fatigued. Like, that's first world problems, right? Like, it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's why I'm saying like you here, you living well. You ain't living comfortably, but you're not living in a tent, worrying about where your next meal gonna come from, or worrying about losing your family member. Like, yeah, like if you was in their shoes, you definitely understand what fatigue is. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, but I have another question. Like, you see a lot of countries coming out basically saying like they don't recognize Israel. It's Palestine. They recognize it as Palestine. But my thing is, to me, when I see that, it's nice and all, but talk is cheap. Like to me, I'm not pro war, nothing like that. I don't even think you have to do it that way. But I think at least they can like provide some military intervention, like to like tell Israel to chill out. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think about the military intervention? You think that's a good idea or no? Or you
So
believe in?
there's a multitude of different angles we can take this. Oh my gosh, I feel like we need to do like an episode on this later on where we look at every single avenue. So I'm going to try to keep this concise.
Okay.
I agree with you. I'm not going to say I understand why they're not doing it, but it's complex, right? So let's look at the Muslim world as a whole. The only true nuclear country, right, would be Pakistan. So technically, Pakistan could nuke, right, in theory, Israel, and inshallah, the issue would be over with. But you also have
Yeah.
to understand it has to do a lot with like economic. Well, three things. It has to do with geography, it has to do with economics, and it has to do with politics. So take for example, Pakistan has very strong economic and political ties with Turkey. Turkey and Azerbaijan, and remember, Erdogan in Turkey has repeatedly said, "I stand with Palestine, X, Y, and Z. We're going to stop
Yeah.
all the trade deals, whatever." It's also like a Muslim country, even though it's secular. Even though they say that openly, right? Now you have Turkey, through Azerbaijan. I don't know which one it is. I think Turkey through Azerbaijan or Azerbaijan through Turkey. Don't quote me on this. They're funding, I want to say 40% of like the fuel in Israel, right? So they're saying one thing and doing another. And I think that's one of the issues we have with capitalism. It's very easy to stand politically and say, I believe in this, X, Y, and Z on an ethical level, on a political level. But then these countries are also like, okay, but I also have to have these alliances, right? Have these alliances with the Gulf states. I have to have these alliances with European countries that are part of NATO. I have to have these alliances with the US. I have to have alliances with Israel in order to have, economic trade, right? Like if I don't do this, it's going to hurt my country. And that's the trap of capitalism. I'm not justifying it. I think it's totally messed up. But that's the thing. All these countries could technically do it. And then let's go back to Pakistan, right? It's a nuclear country. It could technically bomb Israel. Then you're also coming into the fact that it's right next to India. India is basically like, in my opinion, like Israel Junior, because you kind of have that similar, like they want to be a Hindu supremacy ethno state. Modi is very, very heavily like Islamophobic. Christians are suffering, Sikhs are suffering. There's a lot of turmoil going on over there. And I feel like that's also a nuclear country. If Pakistan was to bomb Israel, India would right away bomb Pakistan, and the US and Israel would not stop them because they're, again, political and economic allies. But then you have India that's part of BRICS that's like, hey, we're like standing up for the global south, even though they're like aligning themselves with imperialism. So I think what it's all coming down to is capitalism, in my opinion, is the reason all these countries could potentially do something but are not able to. The secondary issue that we have is it's like one country may be pro-Palestine and have the capability, but because they're allied with countries who are doing trade with Israel, right? It's kind of like a catch-22. So
Right.
it's,
Okay.
and kind of going backwards. Sorry, geopolitics is my thing. I can go on about it all day.
Go ahead. You
Yeah.
good?
I think a lot of people also need to understand that when it comes to geopolitics, and you see all these weird alliances, right? Like Pakistan and Turkey are, economically and politically aligned, but then Turkey's also aligned with Azerbaijan, and they have a lot to do with like the trade and economy in Israel. It's by design. I think that when it came to the ending of World War II, and you saw Britain and the US kind of go in and divide all these different regions in the Middle East and all over the world, really, they did it in such a way where half the countries would have to, have like their resources subjugated. A lot of them would have to rely on the West, right, for like any form of like economic like, strengths or whatever the case may be. And then they created like divisions amongst different countries as well. Like, I think, you have the whole issue like Sunnis and Shia, sectarianism. We see what's going on right now in Syria with like, the Druze population, the Shias, the Sunnis. You also have the Kurds, which are being marginalized by a lot of different countries, and they weren't given an ethno state. And this entire rant is for me to say the way that the Middle East was constructed by Britain essentially was on purpose. Because as long as all these countries, right, divide and conquer, they're fighting amongst each other and relying on the West for economic trade, they're not going to be able to stand up for, not like forget Palestine for a second. They're not even able to stand up for themselves. And so now that we're seeing all these movements going on in Africa, we have all these movements going on where you see all these different alliances, changing day by day. It gives me hope that the global South will rise against imperialism. And I think the absolute first thing that like the entire global South needs to take into account is Palestine. You know how they say everything is connected to Palestine. If Palestine is liberated, I think the entire global South can kind of come together and actually do something. But until like Palestine is liberated, you still have issues with Congo. You have issues going on with Kashmir. You have issues going on with the Rohingyas. You have issues going on with, I mean, the list goes on and on. Sudan is a big
Yeah,
one. We don't talk about that issue enough as well.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Speaking of Congo, like Congo really is the reason why we're able to talk on StreamYard right now because without their lithium, like we wouldn't have, we wouldn't have our phones, our laptops, our computers, and stuff like that. And like you said, you know, in terms of liberation, like Congo, like the people in Congo could say, like, hey, we tired of, the U.S. and China. That's one thing I don't like about China. Taking our lithium, on the low low, and using it for their own good. Like hey, we'll let you have it, but we want you to we want to negotiate with you. We want we want to trade. And I just capitalism is leading us astray in a lot of ways. Like a lot of people say we at late stage capitalism, and it's so true. Um, and like this is why I'm a Marxist communist because like our work, the workers, we the ones, like the people in the Congo, they're the workers. Um you know mine the lithium. Like the workers here, we make the cars, we make the products. You know what I mean? Like take it out the hands of a few billionaires. The billionaires controlling everything, and then and stuff like that. So yeah. Um. So yeah. I got one more question for you since we geopolitics. Yeah, let's talk about the India and Pakistan. Man, like one minute I thought that it was gonna be like an all out war. Like I heard about it from a YouTuber of mine. He was talking about it, but like, can you why India and Pakistan have such a horrible why they have a bad relationship with each other? Like, can you go into that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to understand that the subcontinent area, India, was basically under like the ruling of like different dynasties, different kingdoms. And then you had the British Raj come in, which was basically British colonization. They colonized them for a very, very long time, centuries. And people were very marginalized, and they did the exact same thing we see in other parts of the world. It was a very, divide and conquer sort of mindset. So there was this like there's obviously a lot of like famines and economic issues over there. So a lot of people started thinking in terms of like religion, right? It kind of became religious wars where the majority is Hindu, but there's also a very big, Muslim population. I think one of the biggest in the world, if I'm not mistaken. You have a very big Sikh population. You have like, there's a lot of Christians too, especially in South India. And so the problem I think essentially started when you saw these religious minorities kind of feeling the heat of living in this majority country, if you can call it that. And so at the ending of World War II, when the British Raj basically left and the British Empire was like, okay, we're going to give you independence, but we're also going to go ahead and, separate the countries. And the reason for that is they had something called the Muslim League. It was comprised of 6 people. It started in modern day Bangladesh, and they were basically like, Muslims need their own ethno state. We cannot exist within the context of India. So basically, what happened after World War II is, sorry, I don't have a map in front of me, but you had West Pakistan, which is modern day Pakistan. You had India in the middle, and then you had East Pakistan, which is modern day Bangladesh. And the problem with the British, as usual, is they created the lines. It wasn't the people themselves. So you had like a line drawn through like the heart of Punjab, right? Punjab was cut in half, and then you had like this mass migration. I believe over like 1 million people died, and you had Hindus fleeing from like modern day Pakistan, India. Muslims from India fleeing over the other side. And I think ever since that happened, India basically viewed Pakistan as the enemy. Like, you betrayed us. Does that make sense? Another issue that
Right.
I think grows from it is, Sikhs want their own ethno state as well. They call themselves Khalistanis. Balochis, in Pakistan want their own ethno state called Balochistan. There's a lot of different ethnicities. A lot of people think Indians, Pakistanis, they're like a monolith. They're not. There's like millions of languages, millions of ethnicities,
She like a
lots of
run.
complex history. Yeah, it's a lot going on. But Pakistan was given its own nation state, right? And it was kind of like a country that's like for Muslims by Muslims, like in South
Hmm.
Asia. And because India has always viewed it as kind of like, hey, they sold us out, they left us. There's always been like this Hindu Muslim like dichotomy essentially going on, and it's just been going on for several decades. I don't know if it's ever going to really come to an end, but I want people to understand, were there problems like this prior to the British? Yeah, to a certain degree. Was it to this magnitude? No. But I think you saw the British kind of do this all over the world. We saw that with Rwanda as well. Exactly the same thing. It was the same concept. You kind of have one group in power, and then when you leave, you put the other group in power, or like you give them their own land, or you give them resources. And because there's like this reversal of like power shifting, and dynamics, you see these countries basically now fighting each other, not realizing the reason that we're suffering, the reason that we have all these like resources depleted, the reason why we have poverty and so on and so forth is because we were A, colonized by the British, but B, after they left, they've kept us in debt, right? Like, they have to rely on the IMF, the World Bank, all these other like,
Yeah.
institutions run by the West. And so all these countries are going through like all this debt, all this poverty, all this economic, inequality, and they blame each other, right? It's like, you see the same thing here on a micro level. Democrats and
Yeah.
Republicans fight every single day, but guess who remains poor? All of us. All of us
All of
remain.
us.
I'm not poor because of a Republican. I'm not poor because of a Democrat. I'm poor because the government effing sucks, right? The exact same thing is going on over there. It's going on all over the world. I feel like if we were to sit down and look at like the geopolitical history of like each and every single conflict, it would have something to do with imperialism or colonization. It's just how it is.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Thank you for that detail. Like, um, like truly, to be honest with you, get to the closing questions. Like a lot of people need to learn about geopolitics, especially me, guys. Like, I'm not a geopolitics head, but hopefully, Heena, she can, be a part-time contributor on our network from time to time, and
Yeah,
educate
I'd
me and
love
you
I'd love to
on
come
it.
on and be the political correspondent. If you ever have questions, please DM him. Please leave comments. Please DM me. I'd love to teach people this, because think about it this way: when we understand geopolitics in other countries, right, and like the history, we can then apply it to ourselves, right? When you see certain patterns going on in India and Pakistan, and you see the same patterns happening in the U.S., you're like, wait, what was done to others is being done to us. And Americans, in my experience, and I was born and raised here, so I say this as someone, born and raised with the same education system and all that. I realized we are ignorant for a reason, because if we understood the way the world worked, I think there would have been a revolution decades ago, right? Like, we should be revolting, but we don't understand our own oppression because we haven't understood everyone else's oppression.
Exactly, exactly. And a lot of people see why friends, when the government don't do what the people want, the people actually go to the streets. like that's what we should be doing. Like, like
Yeah.
with this big ugly bill that passed where it cut, Medicaid for 17 million Americans and food stamps and stuff like that. Like we all should, like they said, all of our boots should be on the ground. We should scare the hell out of these politicians. But you're right. Like the more people learn about geopolitics and the background of it, the more people will wake up. I think that's not only that on top of theory, that plus theory, in my opinion, I think it will build up something, in the
Yeah,
future. So
learn about Africa, learn about Latin America. And I still struggle with Latin America. That's like a region that I still need to learn about and hone in on. Learn about Eastern Europe, learn about the different genocides. There's the Bosnian genocide. I think the anniversary just passed, it happened 30 years ago. Their anniversary just passed a few days ago. You have like, the Rohingyas, you had what happened in Rwanda. I think Africans have genuinely suffered on like a multitude of different levels. I think even me this year, I learned so much about Black liberation. And I was like, wow, the more you learn, the more you understand why these systems are so terrible, right? Like, you don't have to be Indian or Pakistani. I don't have to be Black, but we can learn about each other's oppression and give solidarity to each other. That's, I think, part of how movements start. I think a lot of people, they think so deeply in the context of like, well, I'm not this race, or I don't come from this background, or I'm not oppressed, or I'm the model minority. That's why you're
right,
oppressed. That's why you're an Uncle Tom.
exactly,
It's
that's
the
true.
truth. That's why you're an
That's
Uncle
true.
Tom.
Yep, that's true. That's true. Man, I could talk to you all day, but I got some closing questions for all my guests that come on to our shows. The first one is, what are 5 dinner guests you would invite that they could be either dead or alive?
Ooh, let me see. That's such a good question. Noam Chomsky, because I think it was reading him that really inspired me to kind of think for myself. So let's go with that. Malcolm
Okay.
X. I mean, how could I not, right? Like, Malcolm X is just so instrumental to Black liberation and the Muslim world. So that would be number two. Number three would be, and it can be anyone. It doesn't have to be anyone famous or anything like that.
Yeah, it could be anybody.
My sister, because she's my best friend.
No,
Okay,
okay.
that's my best friend. And she's very intelligent and she understands finance and the markets in ways I could never. I always tell her I just don't care to understand capitalism on your level, but hey, teach me what you need to, and I'll teach you about the oppression. So that would be number three.
Okay.
Number four. Ooh, who would I choose for number four? Jeffrey Epstein, because I want to know if he's alive or dead. Let's end it once and for all. So let's do that. And then
Yeah.
number five, Jeffrey Epstein would be an interesting one, right? Because then I'd find
Yeah.
out. And then number five would be, who would number five be? That's a really tough one. I would choose Khalil Gibran. He's one of my favorite authors. So I would say
Okay.
that. Yeah. So that's like a good rounded little dinner table. I want to see all the debates, honestly.
Oh my goodness, man. You could invite a sixth guy, me, because I definitely want to see whether Jeffrey Epstein is alive or unalive. So,
Yeah, you can stream the entire thing. I'm ready for it.
oh yeah, yeah. Second question is, what's your favorite comfort foods?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm a huge foodie. So I would have to say, let me think about this. I love nihari. It's a Pakistani dish. I'm a very meat heavy person. I love steak, medium rare filet mignon. I love all sorts of desserts. Oh my gosh. I know I'm so basic. I love Dubai chocolate. I love ice cream. I love cherry pie. I have an obsession with that. I love ice cream. Yeah, I just love food. So let's end it there.
Yeah, I love ice cream. Especially this place called Cold Stone Creamery. They got some of the best ice cream.
Oh, what's your favorite
I,
flavor?
um, Jello banana pudding.
Ooh, I haven't tried that one. I always get like Cheesecake Fantasy. Have you tried that one?
Oh yeah, yeah. I love
That's my
cheesecake fantasy.
favorite. Yeah. That one, or like they
Yeah,
have like a birthday cake one. Those are my two favorites.
yeah, yeah. Me too. Yeah, I love both of those. And yeah, I need to try the birthday cake one.
Okay, so
From
if you guys want me back on, maybe next time I'm gonna try your favorite flavor, you try my favorite flavor, and we'll kind of assess it on the
okay,
stream when we discuss whatever Trump is
yeah,
doing next.
yeah. Okay, bet. The third question is, where do you see Heena in 10 years from now?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I want to go back to school. I want to get my grad degree or PhD somewhere in the philosophy, political science, geopolitics realm. I really want to be like not just good at like what I discuss. I want to be like a scholar, right? I want to be an intellectual. I want to contribute like new ideas in the discourse. I really want to be part of the movements that are liberating people from oppression. Um, I love public speaking. I love writing. So I'd love to still hone in on like journalism, podcasting, maybe even starting a news channel where all us like little podcasters are like the new CNN and are funded by like crowdfunding as opposed to like Raytheon. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
like, like if that's too much, but that would be amazing.
that'd be based.
Yeah, for sure. And then I want to, in 10 years, I mean, get married, settle down, find my soulmate. And, I hope he's a revolutionary and intellectual as well, because, if he isn't, I'd get very bored. That's
Oh
my
yeah,
list.
yeah, yeah. That's a good that'll be a good story 10 years from
Yeah.
now. um, on the fourth question, this one kind of tricky, but I'm pretty sure you'll nail it. If you were president, what 5 executive orders would you sign on the first day?
Okay. Let's see. This is a really good question. These are really good questions. I haven't thought about these before. Okay, the first order would be no more lobbying. I think that's very important. I don't want I don't want these big PACs and lobbying to infiltrate politicians and the decisions they make, right? If we want to be for the people, by the people, corporate money be getting into the hands of politicians like we see with APAC is why we're in the, in the place that we are, right? So I would get rid of lobbying. That would be number one. I don't know if this counts as an executive order because I know you're only allowed to really do federal things, but we're just going to make it up. We're going to
Yeah.
dismantle NATO.
Oh yeah,
NATO is done.
100%.
We're done. That's not a thing. And I'm not talking about like America is leaving it. I'm talking about like it's we're done with that chapter of humanity. So we're done with NATO. That's number 2. So no lobbying, no NATO. I think I mean free healthcare, right? That should have honestly been my first one. I was just trying to be creative. Free healthcare for everyone. I don't care if you have a toothache. I don't care if you have a sore throat. I don't care if you have the most rare type of cancer. You deserve to go to a doctor and get treatment and not fear that, hey, if you break a bone, you're going to, lose your life savings. So free healthcare is probably one of the most, if not the most important things. Number 4 would be free education because Heena needs a PhD and there's a lot of other people who need to be schooled as well. I don't care what socioeconomic class, race you come from. If you're an immigrant, you're a refugee, you're born here, what your aspirations are. We need more astronauts. We need more engineers. We need doctors. We need scholars. We need writers. We need poets. We need people who are leading the liberation movement. We need authors. And we cannot do that if education is not accessible to everyone across the board. So free public education is the most important thing, if not one of the most important things. Where are we at right now? 4?
4, yeah.
Okay, number 5. Number 5 would be, I want to make this a fun one. Let's see. Okay, if you I'm trying to like word this very diplomatically. If you ghost someone, cheat on someone, treat someone poorly, there's any form of sexual assault or domestic violence, you get deported.
Oh, okay. Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Hey, you know what? I don't mind that one. I really don't.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
because
really don't.
it's funny because they say like, oh, all these Muslim countries are barbaric and this and that. Let's start with the fact that if you rape someone over there, they just shoot you. That it's just it's a done
Yeah.
deal. You rape someone, they care about their women. They care about people's lives. They care about like children being harmed. I think we need to have very dire consequences for abuse and rape and murder and things of that nature. And it should be with due process. I think we don't see that either. But I think if someone is committing those sorts of crimes, we need to all these people who are like in jail or like prison for like the most asinine things like smoking weed. Like let's do a 6-1. Okay, weed is legalized. All these people are out of prison. I'm not going to pull a Kamala Harris. Let's put it that way. But if you are committing
Agreed.
serious crimes, you are harming, you know what I mean, human beings to that magnitude. You do not deserve to continue to live. I really feel that way.
Okay. Hey, hey. I love all of those. Hey, um, I have. Well, this ain't the question I used to ask, but since you're a geopolitics head, how do you feel about BRICS? Like, would you rather United States join BRICS or now, or just be neutral?
I don't want the US to join BRICS, and I'll tell you why. So BRICS was created to like, it's like basically a way for the global south to counter whatever the US and European countries are doing, that dominance. So it's kind of like trying to turn it into a multipolar world. Um, but BRICS itself has issues. Like, so for example, India, right? Like let's go over the
Oh yeah,
countries.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, BRICS. So you have Brazil, you have Russia, you have India, that's the I. C is China, and then S, I believe, is South Africa. And there's a huge slew of countries that actually just joined. But that being said, it's problematic as is because India, I don't think should be in BRICS. Yes, it's part of the global South. Yes, it was colonized. It's going through its issues. Yes, they have certain
Right.
alliances with various different countries, but they align themselves with Israel, and I think that's very problematic for the rest of the countries who are very anti-Zionist. So, um, I guess back to your question, America shouldn't join it because America is the problem. Right? America's
Oh
the
yeah.
problem.
Okay.
These countries are basically trying to resist, right? This is like we're liberating
Yeah. It's
ourselves
counter.
away from the petrodollar, and then America is like, "Hey, just kidding. I'm gonna." Oh, you
Yeah.
guys are back to square one. Not only should the
Yeah.
U.S. not join, but India should leave it.
Yeah. Somebody on Twitter said that earlier too. I just thought about that. Yeah, people said India should leave it. Yeah, well, yeah, they really should. My thing is, if India leaves it, then it to me it won't be a big problem. But yeah, I totally get it because like, hey, United States is try to be the world police, and you got the
Yeah.
world police in. Uh, yeah, so
Yeah, the reason a
that
BRICS had to be created was because of the U.S. So if the U.S. joins it,
yeah,
we're
don't make any
gonna have to
sense.
find other ways to, resist.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Last question. Which person would you want to see on the Good Faith show, but you have to convince them to come onto the show?
Ooh, that's a really good one. Gosh, I don't know. That's a really, really good one. I would say let me think about this one for a second.
Okay, take your time.
There's so many like good people on Twitter, you know what I mean? Like who would I want on here? I think honestly anyone from maybe like Gray Zone or like one of those like, sources. Like I would love to see you interview someone from like Democracy Now, there's Gray Zone, there's like different ones like that. But I'm trying to think of like a specific individual that would be really, really cool.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? Why don't we get the Pro Pilled guys on here? I love them. I think they're amazing. They're doing really big things, and they could potentially be the next Gray Zone or something like that. I think to see a collaboration, you guys could like create like a digital like non-economic bricks. You know what I mean? Like, you guys could be the
Hey,
bricks of the podcasting world, the digital resistance.
yeah. Fun fact: we had Greg on Tea Time. I think back in April. But I definitely want to interview Snow. Like I'm trying to convince Snow to come on to at least tea time or here, So, but I wouldn't mind having them both on together because, I was on their show back in April, so it was a fun experience. So yeah, I'd love to have them both on again. Greg especially.
Yeah.
So
I think having them on would be great because, I wanted to kind of give one of the bigger names, but at the end of the day, we see the big names, saturating, our Twitter feed, and they're part of all these big publications. If I say that my goal is to give a voice to the voiceless, right? And like give a platform for those who don't have it, I think we should honestly, really uplift the smaller like publications, the smaller platforms, and really do our due diligence and like helping educate people with voices they'd otherwise not hear. So I want to give you a big name, but let's give you a name that I think is going to be big. So the Pro Pill guys.
Okay, that's okay. That sounds good. That sounds good. So all right, guys. Man, this is probably one of the best conversations I had with somebody in a long time. Heena, I'm so glad I asked you in the group chat to come on. I'm glad you came on. Sorry about yesterday.
It's okay.
Stuff happens, but thank you again for coming on. Like hearing you talk is like a breath of fresh air to me because a lot of people need to learn about geopolitics. I talk about a lot about domestic stuff all the time, and sometimes I could get repetitive, but it's good to have somebody on that actually knows, the background of these countries and the conflicts and all that stuff. And be sure, like me and you, we're gonna do a lot of collaborations on the ATP network. I think the ATP network need a voice like you.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I'm humbled. My goal is like I'm not a competitive person, which is probably why ideologically fall in, place here. But to me, I want all these platforms to grow, the big ones, the small ones. If you're not funded by corporations, if you're not funded by the government, if you're trying to liberate and help the working class, if you, advocate for human rights, you believe in social justice, you don't look at you don't view other human beings as the enemy, and you realize it's the systems, you deserve to win. So I hope, inshallah, as a Muslim, I hope that your platform continues to grow. I hope you keep having dope people on. I hope I get an opportunity to come back on, and
Most
I want
definitely.
to continue seeing these collaborations, because I really want people to understand the things we're talking about and really, resonate with it. It won't just help us, it would help them. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal of my network. I want to actually, decolonize people from, capitalism, propaganda on, corporate media. Like that's my goal, you know. And also too, like a lot of people don't know this, but the goal of the ATP network is to have different voices on to talk about different things. You a geopolitics person. I'm more of a news commentary guy. Ty Peasant, she's more of a like a she talk about her personal life. Not personal life, but her story about struggling as a working class mom. Michael, he's more like I'd say you and him kind of like on the same level geopolitics wise, but he does kind of both geo and domestic. So yeah, like that's what I wanted, and and I want to thank you again for coming on, and we definitely gonna collaborate in the future.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm humbled to be on. Guys, please subscribe to this channel. Please like, comment, share. Let us know if you have any questions, and comment below if you want me back on, or if you don't and you'd rather have someone else. But, please let him know so he knows what direction he can go in to continue growing and making everyone happy.
Yeah. All right, guys. I know y'all like Heena, so I think they definitely gonna want you to have you back on. So
Thank you so much.
all right. All right, guys. That wraps it up for the Good Faith Show. I'm Andre, signing out, and she's Heena, and we both signing out. Bye.